Calling to order the City Council meeting of Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad you could join us tonight. The first item will be a call to order.
Mr. Knoll?
Here.
Ms. Acuff?
Here.
Ms. Weltman? Here. Mr. Daga?
Here.
Mr. Lemay?
Here.
Mr. Gentile?
Here.
Dr. Wong? Here.
Good. Would everyone join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. An off-agenda item, we have been unexpectedly visited by Tony Farino, the head of our local Cuyahoga County branch, the Orange branch of the Cuyahoga County Library. And Tony's asked to just make a few comments to council, and I invite you to do so.
Thanks, everyone. As Bill said, my name is Tony Freeman. I'm the branch manager of the Orange Branch right around the corner. Just here to say Happy New Year, and we've got some oldies but goodies, and I just have a couple things to let you know about the library. So we're still doing passports. It's actually been a crazy couple weeks with passports. If you know anyone who needs one, we're doing photos and processing. Tons of in-person story times. We've got meeting rooms that community members can book. We started booking for-profit groups as long as they're doing it for staff meetings. If they don't have ample space to do meetings for staff, they can book with us. We've got study rooms, which are hopping. You can book online. You can call us up. You can come in. We've got Zoom licenses that we lend out, so they're up to 300 people. So if you need a free Zoom license, we've got those. Last year we started a seed library, so if you have any gardeners, you know any gardeners, we give out free seed packets, and we blew through like 1,000 of those last year. So it's a cool new project we're doing. June 24th, we're collaborating with the Orange Community Education Rec Departments to do a big touch a truck where the kids can jump into a truck or see some cool big vehicles. So I'm asking mayors or council people if you want to join our head of children's and I in the story time attempt to read a story to the kids. We're going to do that periodically throughout the day. Or if you want to lend any police cruisers or whatever to the events on attend. It's going to be a really cool engagement event. It's the first time we've done that. So Jill Corsock and I will be putting that on. We're also going to be focused on health programming next year. So we're doing biometric exams. We're going to do blood draws and CPR classes and even like a drunk driving simulator for the teens. So we're going to do some cool stuff next year around health, including some culinary literacy where we're partnering with Heinen's. And we're going to do like pickling and some other like make your own salad dressing type things. And for most of you that don't know, we have a Friends of the Library that supports the library through programming and volunteering. So if anyone wants to join or wants to hear more about it, let me know. They do a great job supporting us monetarily and with volunteers sorting book donations. We've got a pollinator garden and a bunch of other little gardens out they take care of. So if you want to help out garden or pick weeds in the spring, we're going to be doing that here in the next couple months. And then more oldies but goodies. We do ebooks, as you all know from the pandemic. So if you use Libby or Hoopla for comic books. We've also got free newspapers, the editions of the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. So it's kind of a pain in the neck to renew them every 3 days, but it's free, so you don't have to pay, the exorbitant fees that they start charges. So we've got a lot more going on. So if you stop in, say hey, you can learn more about the library. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Just a comment. It's a fantastic resource that not enough people in the community know and use. So I appreciate you coming here and doing a little marketing. It's a good idea. It's a good thing for the community.
I appreciate you say it every time, and I appreciate it every time.
You can learn languages on it too. You can download the ebooks when you're driving.
Great.
Great community resource.
Yeah,
Great.
everyone there
Thank
is so helpful. So if you don't know how to access newspapers, for example, they'll help you. If you don't know how to use an ebook or,
having difficulty finding a book on the shelf, everyone's wonderful there.
Yeah, we'll sit you down and help you through. So.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you coming in tonight.
Thanks, you all.
Thank you.
All right, our next scheduled agenda item is we're going to entertain ordinance 2023-01. This is an ordinance to confirm the reappointment of Don Shee and the Chagrin Valley Engineering Limited Company as the city engineer. It's been, I think, since 2019, since we last entertained any increase of compensation for the city's engineer and his company. I've looked them over, the proposed compensation increases. They're very modest. And I think Don, as he's discussed with me, made a very conscientious effort during the pandemic years not to seek any increases in the compensation, not knowing how it would affect the city or not. And I think that was a very nice gesture and initiative on behalf of Don, and I thank him for it. Don provides, as you know, some extraordinary services to this community, in addition to being, in many ways, our principal grant writer for many of the programs that our capital improvements benefit from. He also provides hands-on service to many, many residents during the course of a year, where he visits their homes, helps them deal with property drainage issues and a variety of other situations that our homeowners face. He works in conjunction with our service department to do that. And I'd entertain a motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Suspend.
Oh, to suspend, pardon me. Thank you, Steve.
So moved.
Second, oh,
Roll call on the suspension.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atra?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
yes,
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Vaughn?
Yes.
And next, entertain a motion for the adoption of 2023-01.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, could just kind of bring me back. I know the last time we did this was in 2019. Since the original agenda came out on Friday without this on it, and we got this Monday at I think 2:30. I haven't had that much time to kind of look around, but is this in effect until a new one goes into effect, or is it every 4 years, or what's the kind of for our?
The term of the contract?
Because
Is it?
I couldn't find
It
the
is-
end period.
It is, there is no term on the contract. It would be until
A new ordinance.
there's a new ordinance.
So we could keep
to
these rates.
replace it.
Just kidding.
It's 30-day termination on either side.
Okay.
So you could decide to terminate with us, or we could decide to.
Okay.
Okay, so there's no end date. Got it. Okay. And then,
It's a 30-day contract, if you would.
wonderful. And I think, Don is a great engineer. He's done so much for the city, and Chagrin Valley Engineering is amazing, and they serve a lot of different municipalities. But I think to be, do our due diligence for our taxpayers, should we kind of see what the going rate is across municipalities? Have we done that? And is there an opportunity to do a first reading tonight and then discuss more?
No, I would like to see this get adopted tonight, frankly. Don's gone several years without any increase of his compensation. So far as your question of basically, should we go shopping for engineers? which
No.
is really, well, that's really the question that you've posed. Should
It's a
we-
fair question.
It's a fair question, but, and that's up to council to discuss between yourselves. And I'll leave it for council. I think no. I think that with Don and with Chagrin Valley Engineering, the benefit to the city goes beyond what's on the paper of the contract as to what service he provides. what the company provides. As you noted, Doctor, they do a marvelous job for us. I don't think hiring professionals, as you would know, being a professional, is always a matter of what's the least we can obtain the service for. The question is, what is the quality of the service we are receiving, at least in my opinion? And I think we're receiving an extraordinarily high level of service from Don and his company, along with the acute services that we receive from the company. We also receive the benefit of the institutional knowledge that Chagrin Valley Engineering and Don in particular bring to the city. Because as you may have experienced individually, or which we observe, which I observe all the time having conversations with Don, what is carried around as historic knowledge of how the city functions on that engineering level, how the streets, when the streets were last done, what is the history of a particular thing as to, our experience with it? Does it need replacing? These are all baked into the knowledge base of our city engineer. And I don't think you can really put easily a dollar figure on that. That is an extraordinary value to the city. Not that it can't, over time, I suppose, be replicated by anyone, but there will be significant costs involved in that roll-up. And where you end up in the end, is it of the same quality or not? I guess that could be, we could all take a ride and find out, but it's not something that I would recommend. I think that the increase that is being requested this evening is very modest. And the hourly fee is that's being charged to the staffers that are in the list provided to you are very modest. They're frankly much lower than I might have even anticipated.
A couple of quick questions. Can we quantify what are the percentage changes? In other words, 42,000 is coming from what base prior to this?
40,000.
Okay. So that's and over how many years now? 4. Okay.
It's been 4 years.
All right. The second part was the hourly rates. They've been adjusted on. Do we know what percentage changes they are from the current existing agreement? Approximately. I don't have to be exact, but
They're probably in the 10 to 15% range.
so they're a little much
Many of them
higher
are
than what
actually more than
your
that.
changes.
Yes, yeah, they're quite a bit higher.
Many of them are more than that, though.
There are some on there. We have one that's like our clerical rate. It is up more than 10 or 15%. We can't hire somebody at the rate that we had in there for clerical. That person doesn't exist. You can't hire a $15 an hour person to do clerical work anymore. So, I mean, there are some rates that are higher, but for us, it's not just our dollar per hour costs, the cost of our doing business, everything. We buy fuel for our survey vehicles. We have, $100,000 bill that we have to write for our professional liability insurance. All of those things have gone up, and we've kept our rate Pepper Pike flat for 4 years. So, I mean, we're looking at trying to get back to about where we were 4 years ago in terms of what our actual costs are and what we're charging.
So the clerical went from, this is just kind of like small things, but $28.50 an hour to $42 an hour, which is like almost a 50% increase. But so how's that justified? Because
I can't hire anybody for $15 an hour. That person is going to cost me $22 or $23 an hour. And if you add on our overhead of operating business, I can't just, it's the rate is so low, that $28 hour rate was so low. You got a great bargain for the past 20 years is really what it comes down to. We can't operate with that person even breaking even. We're going to lose money on that person for sure, whoever that person is filling that role. And, quite frankly, we don't spend that much time billing that time. of our engineering work or typical engineering bill, we might have a 1 or 2% of our overall billing is for the clerical rate. It's a small number.
Next question I have, Don, and when you guys adjust these rates, do we have the most favored nation treatment? That is to say, international trade, where you get the rate that nobody else gets lower rate than us, or?
We have the same, Pepper Pike is the same rate as that, what's been proposed in that contract is the same across the board for all of our towns. We have a few towns that might have a couple of numbers that are a little higher, or a little lower based on the person assigned to it or something specific, but that is the rate that all the other communities that we work for have passed or are in the process of passing. Pepper Pike's previous rate was absolutely the lowest of the group.
So Don, just, it's been a while since we had this discussion. Your responsibilities as the city engineer are laid out in items A through K. Basically, that's what you do for the 42.
Right, that's part of the retainer.
And then the individual billing rates are when you have a project
Correct.
and your firm is employed to do the engineering, design drawings, what have you.
Right,
Those are the rates that apply to the project.
to that project. And it could be a project or it could be somebody submits a plan for a big new building and we do the review, which
Okay.
of course we build the city, but then the city bills that
Bills.
person that
Yeah,
submitted.
so some of this is recovered from
Yeah.
user fees, if
Yeah.
you will, that pay from outside.
Right, quite a bit of it. Or like Dominion, when we had the gas line debacle,
Yeah.
you know, they ended up reimbursing the city for all
All
type
those
of
costs, right.
But that was quite a bit of work that we had to do to get it done.
And on the typical project, though, my recollection is, so we're building, resurfacing Shaker, what have you.
Yeah.
You would have an estimate of your fees for that. And then we'd have the contractor's bid for that. It's all broken out as to that
Yeah,
project.
you can itemize those out for sure.
Just, Kevin, I think your instincts about occasionally, when, you know, it's my experience as well, that outside service providers, you know, sometimes they become, you know, entitled and their performance goes down and they just don't care because I've been so long and they think they have this contract forever. So your instincts were right. And when I was a brand new council person and we were just coming out of insolvency, we were looking for dollars under couch cushions, you know, because we had laid off police officers, everyone had taken pay cuts. It was, so I went through this with Don. I don't know if you remember Don. In some detail about, well, how does this work? And how do you bill? And how do you, and you know, in every profession, there's some conflicts of interest. How do you manage those? And so I'm a pretty cynical guy sometimes. And right then we were out of money. So I was really cynical. But over time, you know, I had long conversations with Don. I visited your office. And I invite you to do the same to get comfort, because that's what I did when I was a new council person. Really made sure I understand where the money comes from, where it goes, how it's used, and is it done efficiently and effectively. But going through that process, you know, 10, 11 years ago now, I got very comfortable with Chagrin Valley in general and Don in particular. And while there's a chance that there might be another Don Sheehy out there, maybe, I'm well pleased with what he's done for the city. So this is, your instincts are right, but this is an exception to my general rule on outside service providers, because I think his services have been so fine for the firm that I want to keep him on board. So
I think that there has been, and I agree with everything you said. And, but I think that there's been some slippage in the service. I think that we're paying for a premium, for a great engineer, but I think that there's been some slippage in the service. There were reports that we used to get as a council that I haven't seen in quite a while. A report that would show all of the roads and their conditions. Other ones about some of the other infrastructure things. I'd like to see us getting back to getting those reports on a periodic basis.
you've done those like every couple of years, like
Yeah. I
red,
do.
green, blue on the, or something.
I know I haven't seen it for 4 or 5 years.
Has it been that long?
No, I've given them to the city in the past couple of years. Well, we were at our meeting on Monday and we talked about it. I haven't updated it yet, but we'll take this new data and update it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I keep all my stuff, and I think the last one was about 4 years ago, so. I think that's something that should be at least every 2 years renewed. And I'd like to see, something along those same lines for the sanitary sewers and some of the other infrastructure things that we've got going on now. I mean, sanitary sewers was something we didn't even think about for probably the first 6 years that I was on council, and now I think we think about it a lot because it comes in big dollars quite often. So I think that there's some reporting kinds of things that can match the premium that we're willing to pay.
Well, I know those sheets have been shared at the infrastructure committee level. Now that you're there, maybe you'll see them more often.
I think the council should
If
get
all
them,
of
maybe.
council wants them, there's no problem with
Yeah.
getting them at this
It'd be
level.
good to get an update. Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be asked,
That's not an issue.
we're going to be asked to spend some money tonight, but not all of council was at that meeting. So,
Well, that's the purpose of the committee, though. respectfully.
right, no, I
For the committee
understand.
to recommend up to
I
council.
understand. But I think that I, as a council person, even if I wasn't on the infrastructure, I would like to see that report.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that I have full information before I have to vote on spending 3 million.
I agree with that. I think it makes us a stronger body. We have more information and over a year, 2 years, 3 years, we might be on that committee. So it's good to have the look back.
Okay. Not an issue.
I only bring it up because last year there was an article in Cleveland.com that, kind of said Beechwood repeatedly hands lucrative contracts out to a single company. And they were talking about their engineering company, which is not Chagrin Valley Engineering. And it's always good to be transparent and talk about all this stuff. And, I don't want to hire a new engineer. I just want to make sure we're getting the best price. And maybe there's room for negotiation, Don, because just in the last day, I did reach out to a few of our surrounding communities, and you can see that Lyndhurst gets a great deal. So we can maybe lower it a little bit to those. The numbers in red are just slightly lower than what ours is in the new rate. And if you look across the board, Don has the most experience and he's great. But you can kind of see what the salary is and then the hourly rates for those that I could find,
The question I would have, this is good data, but the question I have, is it apples to apples in terms of the responsibilities of the respective?
I mean, it's the
engineer?
same.
It's knowing
It
the
is-
price
it
of
is not.
everything and the value of nothing.
It's
Yeah.
not
Okay,
apples to
so-
apples. Since we are also the engineers for Lyndhurst, I could tell you there's two things that are substantially different. One is the Lyndhurst engineer does not attend council meetings. So
Okay. I mean,
There's,
this is all good information.
there's a big chunk of time
Yeah.
that, and other committee meetings, it's maybe 2 meetings a year he goes.
Right.
Also, they have what's called a percentage contract for jobs over a certain dollar amount. So they don't do the job based on the hourly rate. They do it on a percentage of construction once it gets over a certain size. So I don't know the exact number, but say anything over $250,000, they work for a percentage. That changes the mix of how the engineering firm makes money. So it is not apples to apples. And if we want to switch over to the Lyndhurst contract, I would gladly.
No,
I'm
in
not
fact,
asking
you are-
for a percentage
Okay.
contract.
that was the subject of my inquiry years ago, because I knew that some cities did it that
Yes,
way. And
that's how Lyndhurst
It
is set up.
creates an even worse conflict of interest than already exists. in some-
I prefer the certainty of dollars for budgeting. I don't
No
recommend
contingent,
a percentage.
contingent fees, right, yeah, right, so.
Yeah, just because it's not just these hourly rates. We're talking about like every year. Joe was kind enough to give me information. Like every year, depending on what projects we do, Chagrin Valley Engineer gets paid anywhere from $220,000 to almost $500,000. So it's not a small chunk of change. So I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and being fiscally responsible for our taxpayers.
And that's what you should be doing, and I agree with that. I mean, you have to look at variance on that in terms of what projects went on that year.
Right, right.
How much of that is reimbursed by
Exactly.
others.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
No,
think
know.
It's a
I
gross
know that.
number,
Yeah.
and it's a real
It's a
number.
big
It's big.
number.
Yeah, I think I'd like to ask that those numbers be refined a bit, and we could find out how much was reimbursed as to how much was city expense would be helpful because that could be a big.
Is that
a
easy
big
to
number.
access, Joe?
No, it's gonna be line item by line item, because like the mayor said early on, down in the building department, somebody puts in $1,000 deposit for a site plan review. Don gets paid from the city that $1,000, but that money had already been given to the city. There's SWIP fees. That's really for stormwater control, $750. They put in a deposit. Don sends his crew out there, and if it's one house in one area, the fee would be X, whatever that's gonna be. But if, when we were doing Sterling Lakes, if they were 3 houses all together, you got some economies of scale because the person came out and was able to see all 3. That money is paid. The huge amounts came in from Dominion that we did. And the other piece is substantial sewer projects that we're doing. But rest assured, every one of those substantial dollar amounts is all approved by city council in advance to us paying down. You know, which is like tonight. We're looking to have Don design and go out for bids for the street program. Council's gonna make a motion, hopefully to pass that. There will be funds that end up with Don. Then on the various construction projects, we have inspectors on those projects that are watching the work on a daily basis. Those fees are paid to Don through the city. However, they come off the contracts from the various contractors that are doing the work. So at the end of the day, the contractors that are paying for the
Paying for that,
inspection fees.
I guess, Tony, the question I have is it, what do you do with that data if we could have it?
Well, I think it would just give us more information about how much is the city expense and how much is not city expense. And Joe, wouldn't it be just the amount of money that's paid out of a certain fund to Don that comes from the residents? Everything that's paid out of the guarantee fund?
Yeah, and you were averaging $60,000 roughly a year for those kind of funds.
So that's pretty steady and it's,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's lower. I think 22 was lower. But you will see that on the new financial reports because we will have an engineering department and it'll have contractual services and there'll be a dollar amount.
I have another question. Don, there's 3 new line item hourly rates on the new contract or the new ordinance. One's for a traffic engineer, one's for a GIS technician, which I'm not sure what that is, and then a one-person survey. Can you explain those?
The traffic or transportation engineer is a specialized area of engineering. It's very specialized. It's like being an expert in a particular medical field. So there's a fairly high rate. We don't charge it all that often. But if we had to do a comprehensive traffic study or review a comprehensive traffic study by somebody else, this is the type of person that would do that work. Right now, I can't really think of a lot of situations where we'd use it, but let's say we upgraded all the signals on New Brainerd. That person would play some part in that design. For the GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. We've had those people working in our office for a fairly long time. As we continue to get requests from different entities, I'm even talking service director and different people like, hey, how can we utilize this GIS tool? We do have somebody that is a very advanced professional that does that work. So it's not really a designer. It's kind of a specialized area. And then the one-person survey crew, it allows us to actually have a single person out with some fairly expensive equipment. So they go up, set the equipment up, and then they can walk around and basically do a lot of the work.
Who holds the stick?
The stick has all the stuff on it. So there's sort of a dummy reference point out here, and then the rod essentially is the data collection equipment. And then they walk around. So there's an additional cost. That's a very high dollar person that's out there doing that, and he's got some specialized equipment. So it's still cheaper than sending a 2-person crew, but actually does the same work. So it's actually costs a little bit less, but it's one person. It's one of those things where if you spend a lot of money on the robotics, you can make it so great that you can't actually make any money on the person. You know? So we're trying to avoid that and to generate a separate rate for this person so that it's fair and that
That makes
Yeah.
sense. You can do a one-person crew that has technology that helps them, and it's cheaper than a two-man crew.
Pretty soon you'll
Do it
send
all
out
day long.
a drone just to do that.
the
for
drone
office.
technology is coming. It really, maybe not from our office, but we might get to the point where we send a drone out and fly back and forth and collect it.
What's a surveyor then? If it's not a one-person survey guy, it's a surveyor.
I happen to be dual licensed. I'm a licensed engineer and a licensed surveyor. We also have individual surveyors that are licensed. There are certain things that they do in the office,
Oh, okay, got it.
professional office tasks that are surveyor.
Different. Okay.
Kathy, just a quick question. I'm trying to read this table now and I make sure I understand this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep.
So if I look at Linter's contract and compare their rates to the rates that have been proposed for us,
Yeah.
I'm trying to see where the significant changes.
Yeah, it's not hugely different, but there's like some numbers, the ones in red, they're like, like for example, the designer, 70 is for their 2023 hourly rate, which is our old rate from 2019. It's going up to 85, which is a 21.4% increase. And then even in 24, they're going to be paying $78 an hour, not the $85 an hour. I don't know how much that comes out in the wash. It's like filling up your gas. Are you going to go to the gas station and save a few bucks? But it is different, but maybe that's.
I think that the explanation though, that the Linter's contract is
right.
different and we don't want it,
Right.
kind of answers
Yeah,
the
that-
question.
yeah,
I think
that-
that
I'm just
That
curious, I was
helps.
trying to compare to see if I
Yeah, it's
get a
not
sense
really,
of. Okay.
I'm glad, thank
No.
you for doing this. And we found out that, engineers are all different
Of course.
because they're all different.
Yeah.
And they're, even within engineering firms, their contracts are different. And I think we have the better contract. I went through this myself in another life, and I think that we have the better model, and I'm glad for it.
Yeah.
So
What's your general overhead? You throw on top of your hourly rate, 25, 30%, something like that?
Our multiplier for overhead is essentially doubling our hourly rate.
That much? Wow.
That's actually industry-wide, that's incredibly low. A lot of companies that do work primarily for ODOT, their multiplier is like 2.25.
Really?
well, I would imagine that your employee benefits, your hourly rate for what you pay the people, between all the taxes and
All the
Yeah,
benefits.
that-
That's
it's gotta be
40% right there.
40%, right?
Yeah, that's 40% right
When
there.
you count
Then you
holidays.
have office space and technology and software. And we used to buy AutoCAD licenses, design license. You buy a license and use it as long as you want. That model's gone.
Gone.
You're cutting them a check every year for everything to be current, but
Subscription.
and you've got 35 or 40 licenses. You can't get by with 10 of them and kind of share them and all that stuff. Everything costs more.
yeah, it's just like Microsoft and Quicken and everybody else. They want to get you every year.
Can you,
I-
Turbo
I'd like to say
tax.
one thing. Tony, I can, I think, understand why you might feel that some of his services have slipped over the years. But my experience has been quite different. I think.
No, I didn't say the services have split. I said the reporting has slipped.
Okay,
There's
reporting.
things,
Thank you
reports
for
that
correcting me.
we got regularly that we just don't get anymore.
Thank you for correcting me. I think, I was trying to remember the exact word you had said. I don't think the reporting has slipped. I think he's changed. And there used to be paper maps we got and paper charts and things like that. I think a lot of that is somewhat computerized now. And Don, you have changed some of the ways you plan certain things out. Is that correct?
That's true. Yeah.
So my experience with Don has been that he's been extraordinarily accessible. I mean, extraordinarily. And anything I want to know about, he'll usually tell me within 2 or 3 hours. So if you ever need any of that information, I mean, perhaps you can blame me for not passing it along to you. But the information is there.
Okay,
The other thing that he does is he writes grants.
I know.
And I think that's a tremendous benefit to the city. And that's something a lot of the firms like his don't do. So I think if you want more reports, we can give you as many reports as you want.
Okay, I think that all the engineering firms that I'm familiar with do the grant writing. I'm familiar with a few, so I don't know that there are a lot that don't do it.
Listen, I appreciate your comments and your comments. I think so far as a communication thing, if you want more, if some paper hasn't been rising from the committee level to council, we can correct that, not an issue. Okay,
Right.
we're done. Did we had a
Yes.
motion and a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a vote on ordinance 2023-01.
Mr. Knoll,
Yes.
Ms. Zatra,
Yes.
Ms. Welton,
Yes.
Mr. Dada,
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Mr. Gentili.
Yes.
Dr. Warren.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, we are going to have request a motion to authorize the city engineer, who could that be, to prepare specifications, plans, and bid process of the 2023 street maintenance program. We had a infrastructure road meeting earlier this week. I'll let Scott take the lead on this. He has some information to share. First, why don't we just see want to tune up the video right now, or
Sure, we're
maybe
cranking
Don?
that up right now.
Yeah, and then Don will explain what's going on in a little more detail.
Yes, you're going to see, as I do every year, so you don't have to go out and walk the streets, I do. And I'm going to give you a 2-minute tour of the proposed projects for 2023 and start it right now.
That's marvelous, Scott, and thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
It
Thanks, John.
did, I appreciate that all of you, I think, get a lot out of it, being able to see everything. I certainly get a lot out of it when I go. We have put together this plan in a way that we're coordinating with the other work that's being done, like the sewer work. And that's why some road projects that you might think should move up on the schedule actually we're holding back because there are some sewers that may be going in some places, and you certainly wouldn't want to do the paving before you do the sewers. So it's all very well coordinated. The city service department continues to address minor drainage issues and roadway flooding, including working with the building department, Jim and Don. And we cite the residents if necessary, if it's something that they're responsible for, and modify existing drainage structures to minimize the backups and ponding. So far it's been working pretty well, I think. I think we're still going to get tested with some of the weather coming up, but we'll see how things are going. It's going in the right direction, I think. The committee also discussed the possibility of constructing more sidewalks, as we've talked about in that committee many times. We're waiting for the results of the survey to get a better feel of how the residents feel. So that I'm sure the mayor will have something to say about that in this meeting, about where we stand on that. We had a brief discussion on the circle at Chagrin and Lander. Don feels at some point it needs to be modernized. The traffic patterns have changed considerably since the pandemic, and previous traffic studies need to be updated to reflect the current conditions and design standards. And the last thing, I know Tony's had this question quite a few times. Where are we going next with the sewers? It's dependent on a lot of different factors. One of those factors is funding. The other is the Board of Health, because if there are areas that are getting polluted more, they may need attention more than others. It also, our sewer system is going to have large pump stations. So that's something else we have to plan as well. But that's pretty much the direction things are going in. And I also wanted to let you know that we didn't have as many road and infrastructure meetings last year as I would like to have had. So we now have a quarterly schedule, which should work for everybody, and everybody should be able to attend, every member of the committee. And we also will have additional meetings as needed if some issues come up that we need to deal with before then. So that's the status of the Road and Infrastructure, and it's officially called Road Infrastructure and Safety Committee.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So that takes care of the committee report.
I just want to say that I really appreciate, I mean, the bird's eye view is so helpful. You really don't realize the status of the road even when you're walking on it, until you start to see all the cracks that have been filled and how dramatic the need is. I mean, I think it's really valuable to us, valuable to the community, so they know that we're doing our due diligence. I mean, obviously, just the picture doesn't tell us what's going on underneath the surface, but I just think it's a huge help. And I really appreciate that you're doing quarterly meetings, because I think this is really one of some of the core work that we do. This is how people live their lives. And so I'm very appreciative. So anyway, of all of you.
Scott,
Thank you.
Scott, I think, one thing that came clear to me in looking at, watching the video and seeing South Woodland, which is near and dear to my heart because that's where I live, is that that truly it's obvious, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, that's a great candidate for mill and fill, because the road isn't that bad, but it's got a lot of cracks. And if we don't do something, it's going to cost a lot more to replace it in the future. So milling and filling seems to make logical sense, just from the bird's eye view that we saw. And I think that is very helpful information to have.
Is that the plan?
Yeah.
That is the plan. Fortunately, I mean, combination of really doing good maintenance over the years, and it's got a really strong base. It's really primarily the surface, and that's the game plan, along with some additional drainage fixes here and there. So.
But you can really see it from that video. That I wouldn't say, oh no, do more, because it's in terrible shape. No, the surface is bad, and the mill and fill replaces the surface. And obviously, you always do drainage things when those are called for. So
Yeah.
I think that's very helpful.
Lano, yes.
One of the suggestions I have, as we are looking at these, what I've noticed, and Scott, I think you have pointed out, the city ordinance says walkers go against the traffic, bikers go with the traffic. But we have no signage anywhere. I don't know how many times I've stopped my car to tell somebody that you should be walking on the other side.
Mhm.
Even if we could make pause signs or something as a part of this process, and it's safer if you're walking against the traffic, frankly. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a way we could put some kind of signage where people become aware of, but who knows what city ordinance. is.
Maybe on the website or something.
Huh?
On the website, city
Yeah,
website, maybe?
anywhere we can,
I don't know.
I mean, I almost think like it could be like, you know how they have in the kids' parks, these paws, you go that way, kind of, even something that simple might make it safer.
Footprints
Footprints.
going in a certain way or
yeah.
something like that.
A walk against traffic campaign.
I agree with you. I've seen that so many times
Yeah.
when I've been out. I've seen, even when I'm walking, I'll see people walking on the same side of the road as I am, and I'm going the other way. And
You'd almost think that on the major streets, we could use sidewalks.
No, and also what happens where sometimes the whole family will walk together, so 4 or 5 people across. So they're not just in the corner, they're,
Right? God forbid they walk in single file.
yeah.
Right.
But I can't stop that, but at least if they knew they're facing other way, they'll see the incoming traffic. That's all I'm.
I think people might just not know, but putting it
don't.
out there in our newsletter,
Yeah.
on our website, or, you know.
We'll figure out a way to
Yeah.
message it up.
So many times I stop and I'm afraid one of these, somebody's gonna punch me for stopping my car to tell them something.
There may be other
Yeah,
issues
okay,
that they have.
Scott, thank you so much for that video. And I just want to say that the service department does a great job filling in all the holes everywhere across the whole entire city. And I'm sad I wasn't at the meeting, and I'm glad we have the quarterly meeting set up now. I would like to formally request, if we do have a last minute meeting, can we do it in an evening? Because I have patients.
I was thinking about that. I've thought about that, and that probably will be the situation.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I want to say that as nice as the video and the presentation is, that's just me channeling the communication that we get from the service department and the engineer. Don's philosophy has always been that we maintain and not let things go to the point where they cost more to repair. A lot of cities don't do that. And we do spend a fair amount of money on our roads, but I think it's really paid off. And if you go around and look, you talk to people from other cities and they'll say, well, the roads in Pepper Pike are,
Yeah, they're nice.
your worst roads are, would be acceptable in our community. So that's kind of the philosophy of the whole infrastructure support here. And I appreciate council being supportive of that philosophy as well, and the residents, of course.
Yeah, one thing that, a couple of things I want to point out before we finish this discussion is while Don is going to do the engineering design of the streets, and it's the selection of the streets is really a collaborative effort that is really a bit of a committee with Don leading it, but along with Jim Advent, our service director, with Joe Brzezinski. I'm brought into the mix at some point. So it's a lot of streets are looked at and evaluated. And the shift of, or the selection of the streets can shift slightly. It's somewhat predictable year to year, but depending on what happens in a winter season or because of some other construction need that's going on, they can change. I don't know that if council wants, Don can go through every one of these streets and evaluate. There's you've been handed out, thank you, Scott, a sheet that describes the individual streets. Generally, the cause is going to be excessive cracking, surface wear, deterioration because of ultraviolet exposure over some of these streets go back 30 plus years.
Right.
So that's a long time for these asphalt surfaces to be exposed, and even sometimes a street will look pretty good, but it's really the strength of that surface is really broken down because of the ultraviolet exposure, the salt that's been applied over the decades. So these are the recommendations, and unless anyone has any other questions regarding it, I'd ask for a motion, a second, and Don can get on with the design work.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atrap?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Uh, Next, we'll move on to committees and department heads. Scott has already reported regarding Road Infrastructure Committee. I don't think there's anything you didn't cover.
No, that's it.
The Finance Committee met earlier this evening.
We had a meeting
Looking at doing things a little differently. in the
at
future.
7 o'clock today on the
Doesn't
Finance
matter.
Committee, and most of the discussion was around the new software system we have that is requiring us to redesign the reports we receive from Joe. We've had several discussions, and Joe has preliminarily designed a report that will even be better than the prior reports. Give us all the information we need on a cash basis, and hopefully that should be up and running next month, as well as final reports for year-end 2022. So we look forward to that.
Thank you. The Planning Commission, for lack of a docket, did not meet earlier this month. We will be meeting first week of February. I believe we do have
February
something.
6th.
February 6th, we have that on the docket. Department heads, anything to report? Okay. How's our salt program going? How are we set? We good?
1,000 tons tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
So we're rolling along.
I hope we end up with a whole lot of extra salt. The weather, when someone mentioned earlier, the library guy, that, people should get ready to come weed the gardens. I thought, wow, he's
Optimistic.
optimistic and early.
Yeah.
So thanks. I want to welcome the police chief, was at a training session down in Columbus, good part of last week. Thank you for that. Council should be aware that is an initiative of Chief Dietz, that not only himself, but many others in the department are in these ongoing training opportunity, taking advantage of training opportunities during the course of a year, and I commend that. And I think it makes our police a stronger and better unit. I know that the fire department trains regularly also with its medical director, improving and practicing their essential life-saving skills. So glad that that's going on too. The finance department is looking to get to year-end close soon. It's been, they've just been slammed, so council knows, with both with the audit at the end of last year, the conversion to the new software, closing year-end. It's been a rugged couple months in finance. I want to thank Joe and Sheila and Becky, who've really been putting in some long hours trying to get it all done. So, and I thank council for its patience during this conversion process. It's been challenging. The city survey was extended a week. We've been having the reports from the County Planning Commission is there was there's been a robust response to it, which we were happy to hear. I know it was over 1,200 responders just a couple days ago, which is, I think the most we had responding to the two prior city-operated surveys were 900, thereabouts. So it's great to see that they're getting a good response, and we look forward to the results.
Mayor, do we have any idea how many responses would be 100%? I'm guessing somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000
Yeah, somewhere.
Adult residents.
adult residents.
The county, they were taken by the number of responses that they had received. This is not.
So far.
So far. It was already exceeding what perhaps their expectation of a very robust survey response would be. Now, they do this stuff all the time and they just don't.
40%, that's pretty good already.
They were really taken by how people got back in response to this. So,
Is that number per address, percentage of addresses or
I don't know,
percentage?
just persons,
Curious.
just persons.
Just
People available who could take a survey, I guess, who take the time to do it.
Maybe 30.
They don't, I don't think they ordinarily see communities that are that responsive. And, in the end, you never get 100% response to a survey. You get, some number that they view as being, statistically, acceptable, that they're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I was just curious if they were also assessing percentage of households. It just
No,
makes
in the
an
end,
interesting number.
they
could
might, in the end,
probably-
they might. We've asked, they're going to break it out, I think, a number of ways
That's
at
great.
the end. They're also they're going to be looking at it to filter, to make sure that they have some method to make sure that it's not getting hijacked by anyone
Someone has,
Yeah.
20 people in
who
their
decides to,
household.
hit it many times. Yeah, Kathy.
I just had one question. When you fill out the survey, you have to put in the address. Will that be taken off? Because I feel like some people might not want to take the survey because then they don't want to put their address and then it come back to them that they said those things.
Yeah, I don't think we're
The
going to,
county are they going to take that off before they give it to us or?
Can you still do it if you don't put in your address?
no.
You
no.
cannot.
You have
That
to
is a
put in
major,
It's
that is a
required
major
Yeah.
filtering method.
No, I know,
As
but
to
just so
the,
that we don't
validity.
know, like, who took that particular survey, can the county then just take off once they verify?
I can talk
everything?
to them about it.
There was
I don't feel.
From a privacy
No.
Yeah, for
perspective.
We discussed-
privacy.
We discussed that in the committee, and we had decided that an address in there to verify who was taking it was a very important piece.
Of
To my
course.
knowledge, it's not going to be shared beyond just taking it, but so that they could make sure that the data was accurate and that the responses coming in were actual.
Of course, but
Of
after
course, you
that,
should feel
You want to
okay.
know, are we going to publish those addresses? And I don't.
no,
have any-
not publish them, but before we get it as a city, since it's going to the county, make sure that before we get it, after they verify everything, take off the address so that we don't.
I don't know.
But I thought we were just
They're
gonna
gonna-
get the results of the survey.
Yeah,
not
they're
gonna
the
interpret
particular
the data
details.
for
Well,
us.
yeah,
I don't think we'll have access
getting
to
the
that.
results.
I was
Okay,
on
I'm
the
just
committee.
making
Yeah.
sure because
Yeah, I don't think,
when you take the,
I think they asked for address just to make sure
That's
how
for
many
their,
adults
that's
are
for
responding.
their
Yeah,
their
I don't
purpose.
think that will
But it
be shown in results, who responded to survey and who didn't. I don't
No,
think
I don't
so.
really care.
Scott, am I correct on that?
You're correct.
Yeah, they'll break
Just
it out
sure.
so far as, I think, major streets and things like that. They'll know, and I think part of their reporting may filter it.
For areas, I think
For
that they were looking
areas.
for if we see a common issue spring up and it's all residents in one area, that maybe that's something that we need to look at and address further. So I think part of it was kind of them
Yeah.
doing it, but everybody should, I would encourage you to take it.
I think the privacy of residents will be,
Yes, respect it.
anonymity will be respected.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
we had a meeting this week planning our city events for the coming year. And that there should be a calendar, that should be getting on calendars pretty soon. We've already begun this solicitation of area businesses for their support of the Taste of Pepper Pike and our summer programming efforts. So stand by and we'll be getting you those dates soon. The only one that I know for certain in my head is the week after Father's Day, as it is annually, will be the Taste of Pepper Pike. I think the first movies are sometime earlier in June. I can report to council that I have received the final results of the appraisal we requested for the Beechbrook property, and we have been and for some time and remain engaged with Beechbrook over the property. So that's all I have to report to council this evening about that. Council, you have any comments? Tony?
I want to thank Kathy for the work that she did on the engineer's contract, and I think that discussion was very helpful, and I think Don you should feel that you've been vetted and you came out smelling like a rose. And it's good that Kathy had that skepticism that allowed us to discuss it and fully understand the contract. So thank you.
Anyone else?
I also wanted to talk about a little bit about the infrastructure meeting that I went to, and it was very impressive. The things that we talked about, and the quarterly schedule is great. I'm very happy that we have that and have it in advance. It helps so much. And everybody knows on council that you're always invited to come and watch if you want. And I wanted to also say that the mayor said something that was surprising to me, and it led me to think about how good our service department is. And that's that he's not getting a lot of calls about flooding from residents in the last year. I think you said it's been around a year. And one of the reasons for that is that we're using cameras to look at the sewers, and the service department is being proactive in keeping things clear. And that's, part of the maintenance that we do as a city that I thought everybody should know that we do. And it's helping us to save money in the long run and keep our streets and our infrastructure in good condition. So very happy to see that. And I knew about the cameras, but it really does a lot to help our finances and to help the structure of the city. So I'm very happy to see that.
Good, thank you.
Rick, I would like to have just to your point on getting the results of the appraisal, could we have an executive session after this to discuss that in some more detail? I think
We could,
council will be better informed.
we could. Anyone else? Okay, move to any audience comments? Yes.
Mary Ann Luncheon, 29826 South Woodland Road. I was surprised last week to get the red code call about the survey. And I had a couple of neighbors call me because they did not know exactly what it meant. And then to hear that the survey was going to be taken, I guess, until January 30th. So I made a couple of calls and emails, and I was surprised to read that the city, the county planning is receiving a robust ongoing response and quite pleased with the number of responses. So I was concerned, is that like 40%, 50%? So when I went online, it says that Pepper Pike has 6,319 residents, 2,283 households, around 3-member families in the house, that's like 82.3%, non-family members about 17.7%, 34.6% have children, 65.4% have no children. In 2023, it lists 4,806 adults. 1,480 are seniors. The female population is 3,309. The male population is 3,010. The median age is 47. So I am curious, when you get your response, will it be broken down specifically with the number, the ages, because you were asked your age, the adults, and so will all of those indications be broken down specifically with the category that they fall into? I'd be very curious to see how you do get that final report. My understanding was that the contract was in excess of $7,000, that the cost to design and the postage and the signage was incorporated with that payment. So I would be curious to see too how it breaks out individually with the cost of the design of the postcard, the actual formation of the questions that you were asked. And I really hope that they should be able to, although it will take time, input all of that into a database so that they really break down the number and the ages of the people and the responses to the questionnaire. So that's my comment. I would appreciate that, and to be able to see then that final report.
Thank you. I think they're going to make use of all of the, other than the address information, I think all the questions, if they ask a question, there's going to be some incorporation of those answers as they describe the
It
responses.
would be broken down right into
Yeah,
the age group.
Yeah, I don't think it asks, did it ask male, female? I don't even
Yes.
know. Did it?
I think so.
Yeah, all that'll come.
I don't remember.
I don't remember male, female.
I don't
Sure
believe
about
that
that.
that.
It did not
was
ask male,
age.
female.
Interested in age.
It asked
Age
age.
definitely asked, a range and the age, I do remember.
It didn't ask male, female. Okay, anyone else?
I'm Jean, 30496 West Landerwood, Jean Gascoigne. I have a question if you could share, or if you have anything to share about the real estate with purchase and appraisal for Beach Brook.
I don't have anything to share with that this time. No, I don't.
The reason I ask is because I sort of hear these in the meeting, and then I read a little few snippets of the minutes online. And I just want to say, I hope whatever it is, all of our efforts a couple of years ago for Beach Brook, that whatever it is you guys are talking about, it's going to be good for Pepper Pike, so.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next, then, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing the purchase or sale of real estate.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atrach?
yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Long?
Yes.
Okay, we stand adjourned to executive session. There will be no further public discussion following the session, so thank you all for attending this evening. Chiefs, you don't have to stay. You can leave.